do you think that today, in 2015, in America, does every American actually enjoy, are they guaranteed democracy, and do they all experience democracy?
Right. Had to start with me. Huh? Well, I think on the second part, I think no, I don't think the average American necessarily experiences democracy in the form in which they ought to expect it, because I think that concentrated money just has such a loud voice that it often does drown out the collective voices of average citizens. And it's partly to do with just the power of money and the power it exerts on politics, but it also has to do with the withdrawal from politics of a large body of our citizens. When we're saying that on a good election with great turnout, we're seeing 6 in 10 eligible voters turn out, and we're celebrating that as really great turnout. That's not a good thing. And I think so you've had a lot of Americans withdraw themselves from the democratic process, in part in response to this feeling of futility of the average person versus big money, big industry, people with big lobbies that can exert so much more influence. And at the same time, I think, and Ari writes a lot about this in his great new book, if I can plug his book as well as my own.
I'll plug your book in a second.
Okay, well, I'm plugging Ari's book too. Is that you also have a concentrated forces that are trying to encourage people to withdraw or to try to exclude people from the process in order to game the system and create math that guarantees that their interests go to the fore. And so with these constant sort of pushing people out of the process and people withdrawing themselves and the power of money, unfortunately, I think we're not experiencing full democracy as we should.
Well, first off, I just want to thank the Brooklyn Book Festival for having us. I want to thank my friend and colleague, Peter Rothberg, for organizing this great panel. I want to thank George for moderating it. I want to thank these two awesome women next to me, Zephyr and Joy, for being here. And I'm especially happy because my whole family is here and my 11-month-old daughter is here learning about voting rights as we speak. And hopefully she'll inherit a country that's better off than we are now. As to your question, is democracy guaranteed? I think the answer is no, and I think unfortunately it's always been no. If you look at American history, and hopefully I can condense 300 years of American history into 3 minutes, but basically there's a fundamental contradiction, which is that what should be the most fundamental right in a democracy, the right to vote, has always been the most contested. This has never been a settled issue. You look back at 1787, when the Constitution was ratified, only white male property owners could vote in the 11 states of the Union. You look at 1865, when the Civil War ended, black men could only vote freely in 5 states. You look at 1920, when the 19th Amendment was passed, giving women the right to vote. That was white women who almost exclusively were given that right. And even when we have passed protections, like the 15th Amendment of 1870, which said very, very clearly that the right to vote shall not be denied or abridged on the basis of race, color, or previous condition of servitude, our commitment to enforcing those laws on the books has always been waning. We enforced the 15th Amendment for 10 years. We have this flourishing of democracy in the South during Reconstruction. Federal troops leave, we get Jim Crow, and that lasts for almost 100 years. And the starting point of my book is the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was a revolutionary piece of legislation, one of the most important laws ever passed by the Congress, and certainly the most important civil rights law passed by the Congress. And it was supposed to end this debate once and for all. It was supposed to say that everyone should have the right to vote. And when Lyndon Johnson introduced the Voting Rights Act before the Congress in March 1965, he said very, very clearly, it is wrong, deadly wrong, to deny any of your fellow Americans the right to vote. And so I think it's important to appreciate the revolution that happened because of the Voting Rights Act and realize that people like John Lewis were able to be elected to Congress because of the Voting Rights Act. Barack Obama was able to be elected president because of the Voting Rights Act. But this debate was never settled, that there's another strand of American history, that the revolution of 1965 led to an equally intense counter-revolution to try to roll back all the gains. And we're seeing that particularly today with the Supreme Court that in 2013 gutted the Voting Rights Act, with half the states in the country since the 2010 election passing new laws making it harder to vote. We're heading into a 2016 election that's going to be the first presidential election in 50 years without the full protections of the Voting Rights Act. Does that sound like a situation in which democracy is guaranteed?